So our first speaker today is Steve Mallinson, the Chief Executive of LocalGiving.com. Steve became Chief Executive last year, having previously worked in telecoms for more than 30 years. For 11 years, he headed up IP Access, which became a world leader in small cellular base stations. Being somewhat technically challenged in the IT department, I looked this up on Google and understand that they are transceivers that connect a number of devices to one another, or as a router for connecting computers to a network. No doubt Steve will correct me if that's wrong. More recently, while working with a number of creative arts organisations, Steve developed a passion for charities and corporate social responsibility for technology companies, which led him to Local Giving. So, Steve.
It's a long walk up here. Thank you, Nick, for the introduction, and you got that spot on. It's quite refreshing, actually, for me to be in the first talk of the day, because normally I get the graveyard shift after lunch. And so if I see your eyelids drooping, I'll know it's nothing to do with the lunch, and it might be something to do with what I'm saying. Anyway, this is what I need. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about fundraising, and in particular using the internet for that purpose. As you may have guessed from the name of my organisation, Local Giving is all about local charities and community groups. So what I'm going to say may be more oriented towards them, but hopefully there'll be something for everyone in what I'm going to talk about. So let me just kick off and wow you with some facts and figures. I think the government has pointed out we are a generous nation. Something like 3/4 of people in the UK donate money to a charity, and 2/3 of people in the country think it's important to support local communities, and yet only 40% of the people we surveyed, at least, have actually done anything to donate to a charity in their hometown. Why is that? Well, here's another fact. Only 7% of donations in the UK go to small charities, and you can probably see why. You just need to open your newspapers, look online, look on television. The large charities are very visible and actively securing support, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the small charities are the ones that are missing out, we think. In fact, more than half of charities, small charities with an income of less than £1 million, more than half don't accept donations online, which is a big shame, because you can raise much more online than you typically will raise offline, that is to say, in the flesh with a bucket or a cake sale. The numbers show that on average, something like £30 can be raised online compared with £15 offline. So it can be very effective if you're raising money online. And it can be cost effective as well, in the sense that the amount you spend on raising money online can multiply quite significantly. £1 spent on online fundraising can typically raise £10 of funding, which isn't a bad ratio. So those are the numbers, but why online? Well, I like this photograph because this gentleman on the right reminds me of my dad. He's from an older generation, and yet, what can we see? Well, he's actually outside. He's with a handheld device, and the person he's with is smiling and happy. What this is demonstrating is that the internet has changed out of all recognition in the last 15 or 20 years. It's become prevalent. That is to say, we can do more outside with portable tablets. Even in the last 5 years, things have changed dramatically. And it's possible to engage all sectors of the community because it's no longer something for specialists. So why donate online? Well, why get involved online? There is more. There was meant to be a bucket in this slide, and it's disappeared. But comparing offline bucket collections with collecting money via the internet, there is just more time available People spend more time online than you're likely to reach, in the street with a bucket. There are more people. More people are spending more of their time in the evenings online. You can establish more connections, and fundamentally, it's possible to establish links and relationships with people, which is so much more difficult when you're meeting people in the street. Once somebody's donated and put money in the bucket, they're gone. But on the internet, it's possible to identify them if they want to be identified and remain in touch with them, communicate with them, and turn them from being a donor into a long-term supporter. Finally, there's more possibilities for funding. How many of you found it difficult to get people to sign direct debit forms when you're in the street or at an event? It is quite difficult. On the other hand, if you're donating online, it's possible to establish a direct debit connection pretty easily. It's also a lot easier to collect that gift aid that, again, is difficult to do when you're in the heat of the moment in the street. And then finally, there are other things that can be executed online which are more difficult offline, and I'll talk more about match funds as we go on. So I think there's just more possibilities. I'm not saying that online is going to replace offline. I'm not saying the internet is going to replace the bucket and the cake sales and all those wonderful events, but it can certainly complement and be very effective in complementing that terrific work. So let's for a minute assume I've persuaded you with that very short introduction that you want to get involved in raising money online. How do you go about it? Well, I think the first thing to ask yourself is, am I going to do this myself, or am I going to get some help from maybe a donation site? And it's certainly possible to do it yourself. You can establish a PayPal account. You can create a website very easily these days, either mainly for free. You can get your own URL for free, more or less. You can create your own Facebook page. It's very easy to set up a presence on the internet. Or you can, and you can complement that, of course, by going to a donation site. Local Giving is one, but there's Just Giving, BT My Donate, there's a pile of them out there. What are the other factors to consider? Well, collection of gift aid, is that something you want to do yourself, or will you get somebody to do that for you? And if you're going to get somebody to do it for you, how long is it going to be before you will get that gift aid payment into your account? It's not something that happens instantly, and some sites are known to hang on to gift aid payments for a substantial amount of time. So think about that when you're making your decision. What can you facilitate for people who want to support you online? So, for example, if you know someone who wants to run a marathon, what facilities do you need online to help them raise money to support your cause? Some websites will do that for you. Others, if you're going to do it yourself, you'll have to set something up specially for that. And then crowdfunding. Well, I'm not going to talk about crowdfunding. You probably all heard the term and perhaps used it. It is an exciting way to leverage the power of the community to raise money for a particular cause, and the charity sector is starting to take advantage of that. It's something not to ignore in the future. If you're expert in online technology, maybe you don't need any help. But if you're not, and many small charities, people that we help, are not experts in this area, where are you going to get help? What kind of help is available? Again, think about that when you're choosing your platform. What about PR support? Local press is a great place to get the message out. What kind of help can you get from them, and how will you access that help? Penultimate bullet about match funds. Again, I will talk a little bit more about match funds, but match funds we have found are a great way to incentivize people to give. So what is a match fund? Well, it's a fund set aside for a charity to be able to access when they secure an online donation. So for example, it's one thing for me to say, Nick, where are you? Give us a £5 for my great cause. That's one thing. It's quite a difficult thing to do. Perhaps I could say, Nick, if you give me £5, then somebody else is going to put £5 in the pot. It's an easier ask, and particularly for small charities who are not necessarily used to asking for money, a match fund is a great way to get going with the fundraising. And then finally, there are all the costs and what's the probability of payback. Nothing is in this life is generally for free. If you're going to use a donation site, most donation sites charge one way or another, not all of them do. You've got to think about how much they charge and what the payback time is likely to be with the service that they deliver. So those are the sorts of factors to consider if you're going to go online and try to raise money that way. So I'm going to move on now and talk a little bit about social media, and in particular, how social media can be leveraged to provide supporters for charities. Let me just try and kill a few myths first of all. What is social media not? Well, first thing to say, it's not something that just young people do. Increasingly, social media is accessed by all sectors of the population. It's not a great way to advertise. And if you only go away with one thing I say today, please remember this bit. My tip for the day is that if you use social media to advertise your cause, you will be less successful than if you use social media to communicate and engage in communication with the people out there. Of course, social media is great for advertising. It's what it's used for a lot of the time. But my point is that for charities, social media is not really for advertising. It's not a one-way kind of path for communicating. Social media is not a billion people all out there desperate to give you money, waiting for your website to appear, for your Twitter feed to appear, for your Facebook page to appear, and they're all going to run and give you money because they're convinced by the immensity of your cause. It isn't like that, although it can be fruitful from a fundraising point of view. And finally, it's just not effortless magic. You do have to put some energy into this in order to make use of it, but it can be very, very effective. So I suppose the point is, social media is not a one-way street. It's not me broadcasting my message to the world. What it is, it's a way to have more conversations with more people, a way of building trust and rapport, because ultimately, and I think this is probably as true in business as it is in the third sector, people don't buy from people they don't trust. And so to establish trust, to communicate what you're doing, to answer questions and be available via social media is a more effective way to leverage it if you're in the job of fundraising for your charity. So how to use it? Well, just a few thoughts. I think it's good to clarify what your objectives are before you engage in social media. If you're going to use Facebook, which is this symbol, it's great for connecting with friends. It's terrific for expanding that circle beyond friends to friends of friends. It's great for communicating with existing supporters. A lot of charities use Facebook and it's very effective. On the other hand, LinkedIn, some of you, maybe all of you, have a LinkedIn page somewhere. Great for connecting with professional groups. LinkedIn has a set of groups and you can communicate and join those groups and explain what your charity is about with that professional community. It's great for connecting with people in work. It's different then from Facebook. And then of the big three, I guess Twitter is the third one, and I have to say, before I joined Local Giving, I was just not at all a member of the Twitterati. I've never really got Twitter, but I have to say that we find that the groups that are on Local Giving use Twitter to great effect, and many of them really getting their message out very quickly. It's great for responding to situations and for dealing with things quickly. And I think probably of those three platforms, at least with the groups we work with, Twitter is probably the most effective in communicating what's going on and creating a community of people who follow. Not to forget that rich media, that is to say video and pictures and even sound files, you can augment your presence in the the internet by having accounts on places like Pinterest and YouTube and Instagram. And it's so much easier for people to engage with your message if you've got images or videos for them to watch. It's so easy to take pictures these days, isn't it? You don't need a camera, you just need a phone. You can make videos very easily with your phone, and many charities do. Upload them in a heartbeat, and you've got a message out there. And it's a very powerful way, and it hardly would have been thought of 5 or 10 years ago. So things have really moved on. Once you've sort of chosen your media, think about what you're trying to do. And as I said before, this is not about advertising, it's about a conversation. You don't want to be like this guy. You want people to listen to you. It's easy to display a message in an advertising kind of way, but it's far better to engage, seek opinions, get perspectives on what you're doing, invite people to comment on what you're doing, ask questions, comment back, get engaged with people. And the important point is this doesn't happen in spare time. You do have to set time aside for it. It does take time to have an effective social media campaign. And I know it's tempting to think that social media is just playing, but actually it's a very powerful way of engaging with a community of people online and securing support for what you do. The second thing it's very good at is, of course, a way for that message then to be passed on by the person you're talking to. So do encourage people to pass on your message. They also will have networks and connections. If you can get people to pass on your message, you'll find that it will start to amplify. The call to action, it's a marketing term, it's a little bit jargony, but what it's really saying, and studies have shown this, that if you ask somebody to do something very clearly, please share this, you'll find that many people will. If you don't say, please share this, and you assume that they will, most people won't. So you have to be very clear and directive in your actions online for you to get the results that you're looking for. Call to action, do something, please share this, please pass this on, and you'll find that many people will do that and your message will get out there. And it's a lot easier to share those messages, of course, if you've made a little video, you might have saved it on YouTube, or you've got a photograph of something that's relevant to your cause. I was talking to someone earlier who was talking about the power of having a tall ship in their social media. People like certain kinds of images, and learn from what works and use more of what works and use less of what doesn't work. So, a 5-step process. This is just the 5 things we recommend, but you'll find your own ways, I'm sure. First of all, have a place where you can collect donations with an address, a URL, the place that you go to in order to make a donation to your charity, and then connect that donation page to your social accounts. That's to say, if you have a Twitter account, make sure that in your description of who you are, that Twitter page has got your donation page address in there. If you have a Facebook page, put the donation page in there. When you call to action, if you're asking people to help you out and donate, put that URL in there. Don't make it too confusing. Make sure you're driving people all the time in as few clicks as possible to the place where they can donate. Build a follower community. That means, as I've said before, engage with them, talk to them, ask them questions, put up polls. It's so easy on Facebook and other social media platforms to create a simple poll. Why do that? Well, because people like filling in polls. They want to know. They want you to know what they think. And in doing so, you'll get engagement and people will start to listen to your message. The third thing, this is about getting serious about how you communicate what you're going to do. Establish a calendar, make a decision. I'm going to put so many posts on Facebook so many times a week. It might be 1 post a day, it might be 1 post a week, whatever it is. Make a calendar and stick to it. And you'll find from your community lots of things to talk about. But if you stick to it, then you're actually training your followers to expect things. and they will engage with you, and they will start to follow, and they'll start to repeat the things that they find interesting, and their friends will start to see that message, and slowly your message will spread. And if you say something dramatic, maybe it'll spread very quickly and it'll go viral, and then you'll be in the front page of the news. Ask your supporters to share, spread the message, and then finally, very important, don't forget to measure. It's so easy to think that you've done enough, but when you've spread your message, but actually try to figure out what is working and what is not. There are all sorts of free online tools you can use. Google Analytics is one, StatCounter is another. There are plenty of ways in which you can measure what's going on to figure out what works, what is not working, and what should I do more of, what should I do less of. Do I find certain kinds of images drive more interest? Do I get more likes if I've got pictures of ships? That's one thing I learned today. If I've got pictures of the groups that I help, does that help or hinder? What should I be putting in those images in order to drive engagement? I think you'll find that actually the work that you do as a charity, if you're putting photographs of that online, you'll find that that will attract plenty of attention and interest. So looking at the time, I'm just going to finish up now. One word, one slide really about what local giving is. We're a non-profit organisation, and we're here to help local charities, local causes, local communities. And we do that in three ways. We have a website with donation pages. We will claim gift aid for you and pass it on to you as quickly as we can get it. We have pages where you can allow fundraisers to raise money for you. So if somebody's running a marathon, yes, they can have their own page. And we're about to launch projects and appeals, which is basically allowing you to leverage crowdfunding as a way of engaging your supporters. Quite a few sites actually do this kind of thing, so we're not the only people out there. But there are a couple of other things we do which are slightly different from some of the other fundraising sites. Since October 2014, we've distributed £500,000 of money we've raised from philanthropists, government, community foundations, and corporates to members on our platform, allowing them to be able to go to their community of supporters to say, if you give me so much money, then local giving will match it. And we can do that on a national or a local basis, and we're always on the lookout and work hard to try to get more match funds available to help create these incentives to allow the small groups particularly to go and raise funds effectively. And then finally we have live help. Our help desk is staffed by qualified fundraisers, so if you've got any questions about fundraising, you can call the help desk team and they'll help you as best they can solve your problems. We're going to be doing more like this. We're going to create a community of our groups so that they can communicate with each other, share their problems, share their solutions, and hopefully create more resource to enable them to be effective in fundraising. And that's because we see ourselves as effectively the fundraisers for the small groups that don't have their own fundraising department. That's what we're about. We don't work just with small groups. We do work just with local groups. I won't leave all that. I'll leave you with this picture just to press home the concept that you can raise a lot of money for your group online if you just get organised. And it's easier and easier to become organised to raise money from the internet, and a very exciting and actually fun way to do it. So that's all I've got to say, and thank you for your time.